While it's been 25 years since the Constitution came into effect, the final draft was signed into law by late former President Nelson Mandela in 1996. It came into effect the following year. The signing of the supreme rule of the land was a poignant occasion for a young democratic South Africa. It's hailed as one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. But how much has it contributed to changing the lives of South Africans? This, a talking point, has been turned into a debate following Minister Lindiwe Sisulu's opinion piece. So for more on this now, I'm joined by former Constitutional Court Judge, Justice Albie Sachs. Justice Sachs, thank you so much for your time this morning. Obviously, it has been lauded time and time again as one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. But of course, looking at how life has progressed since 1994, one wonders around the implementation of the Constitution and allowing the Constitution to actually be the guiding document by government to ensure that its intention is fulfilled. What's your take 27 or so years later into our democracy?
Well, first of all, the Constitution gave us a country. It gave us broadcasting. It gave us people like you able to speak out and ask me these questions. And it gave us the Constitutional Court. And I look at the progress and lack of progress very much from the point of view of a judge. There have been some spectacular ways in which the Constitution kicked in and I'd say saved our country. The Treatment Action Campaign case, for example, when we were so severely hit, tens and tens, hundreds of thousands of people dying because of HIV/AIDS, and there was denialism on the part of certain senior people in government as to whether the virus existed, and people went to court. People on the ground, the poorest of the poor, many households already decimated by the virus, getting together, demanding access to antiretrovirals. And the court said the government is under a constitutional duty to provide. And it saved South Africa. And today we have the biggest antiretroviral program in the world. So I mention that as a very specific, concrete example of how the Constitution has helped. It's also helped in the case of developing customary law, so important for so many millions and millions of people, so entrenched in the culture and the spirit of communities, but also with problems of patriarchy, that girl children couldn't inherit, that on divorce, that widows would be left bereft and without. And the court developed, using the text of the Constitution, the equality principles linked with recognition of customary law to enable what amounts to millions of African women who are claiming their rights under the Constitution. It helped people facing eviction to get alternative accommodation. It's helped put pressure on education authorities to provide textbooks to deal with latrines. So the Constitution in itself stands as an instrument that can be used when civil society, the people, invoke it to get their rights. It doesn't build houses, it doesn't provide hospital beds, it doesn't itself reduce conflict and violence, it doesn't eliminate racism, but it gives us the mechanisms to do that. It's also given us the chance to have elections, to criticize government, to hold people to account. It compelled, I could go on. It's a source of positivity and good in our society. The fact that it hasn't been applied and invoked as much as it could have been, that's the problem. It's not the problem emanating from the Constitution, it's the failure to use the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking here about the failure to use the Constitution, and of course, Justice, it brings us back to the inequality gap that exists within South Africa, a growing inequality gap. One may say that is actually can be considered as a ticking time bomb. Then how do we then, as civil society, hold government to account, whoever it is that is governing at the time, hold them to account so that we can see the implementation of this Constitution? There's no point in having a Constitution if we do not apply it in our daily lives.
Exactly. The Constitution was a product of struggle. It was drafted in the Constitutional Assembly by people who'd been in jail, been in exile, had been in the underground resistance overwhelmingly, a strong women's movement, strong workers' movement. It's got all the imprints of that. So it was drafted by people with idealism and passion to create a better society, and it will be invoked and utilized with that same passion and organization. And it's not just civil society, it's government, it's the political parties, it's individuals. Everybody should use the spirit and the text of the Constitution to make South Africa a better country.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one would consider it a living, breathing document. I mean, it's been amended about 17 times or so. So it is open to amendment should we be able to cater to the needs of the time. Do South Africans know that this is a living, breathing document that stands for them, that entrenched in this Constitution is a Bill of Rights that is ensuring that their rights are adhered to on a daily basis?
I don't think it's widely known. It's seen as something for political leaders, for disputes in Parliament and so on. That's well known. And I don't think ordinary people realize the extent to which it can be invoked to make their lives much better. But it's been there at critical moments in the life of the nation. People do know that. And people do know they have the right to vote. They have the right to speak their minds, the right to criticize. I think these are things that people know. They often say, I'll take you all the way up to the Constitutional Court because it's got significance in the life of the nation.
I mean, we were looking here right now at where we're standing, being able to uphold the Constitution in the Constitutional Court. And Justice, of course, being that we've got 4 candidates that one of the 4 may see themselves being able to uphold this very same living, breathing document, the Constitution, in the Constitution Court. When you're looking at what's been transpiring so far this past week, what are your views on that? And maybe another question that may be a little bit unfair to you is, who do you see being able to hold this document to the highest court in the land?
Well, I might have my private views about the 4, but I must say I thought they were magnificent. South Africa can be proud that we have 4 candidates. Each one could serve with dignity, with composure, with thoughtfulness, with erudition. I felt very, very proud. Sometimes the questions were extremely hostile, very, very sharp. The rumor mongering entered into the rational debates and so on. But they stood their ground, each one of them. I'm not going to indicate who my personal favorite would be. In a way, they're all my favorites because really they're very different in personality, in style, in background, but they have this core thing in common, a love for the Constitution, for constitutionalism, for process, for doing things with empathy, the focus on the vulnerable and the poor. All of them shone very, very brightly.
Well, Justice, if you were to analyze the country and the needs of South Africa right now, what does South Africa need in a constitutional court judge or the chief of that matter?
But I think that quality of integrity is absolutely number one. That honesty of heart and soul and spirit and clarity of mind. Then one wants the leader to be a leader, not simply a good functionary, although that's admirable. But with that extra vision, that capacity to rally people around. You know, we've had brilliant Chief Justices. Arthur Chaskalson was extraordinary. Ismail Mohammed, the very, very first brilliant person. Sandile Ngcobo afterwards. Pius Langa, to whom I felt very, 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 very close. So there's a great tradition to follow. And I won't bring it up to more recent times, but certainly there've been, Justice Mogoeng reached moments of greatness at the time when it really, really, really mattered, even if there was controversy towards the end. So there's a strong pattern to be followed, and yet each one is quite different from the others. So that's what one wants from the leader, the Chief Justice, greater powers now. Each individual court member, and the vacancy is still to be filled, also brings something special. You don't have to be a leader in that sense, an organizer, a great communicator. You have to be thoughtful. You have to be empathetic. You have to be a good listener. You have to be a team worker. You have to be somebody with civility who treats people with respect all the time, whatever their arguments might be. You need somebody with courage. Sometimes, it's the loneliest job in the world. You'd think it's there in public, you've got great colleagues, you've got a text to guide you, but ultimately it's you and your conscience, and you have to be conscientious in that sense. And I'm very pleased to see that we have people of that caliber on the court today. I read the judgments when they come out. They're thoughtful, they're balanced. One of the things we did was to insist, that was Richard Goldstone and myself, on press summaries, so that the public could get a good summary of the cases. And just yesterday, I was reading the press summary of the case involving the Speaker and the Public Protector. And often I look at the factors and the issues, and I say, what would I have done? And I'd say 19 out of 20 times, I agree with the outcomes. It's not proof that they're necessarily right, because I'm not necessarily right, but it's as an institution with pride, with courage, with thoughtfulness. Just the other day, I got a request from Supreme Court elsewhere, Constitutional Court elsewhere in Africa, to guide them. How did the South African Constitutional Court develop a new way of thinking? I spent time in Kenya. I was invited because of the work I'd done on the Constitutional Court in South Africa. So on the African continent, our court has enormous prestige, and it's linking up with other courts and providing a new African jurisprudence that's progressive and forward-looking.